Hi, I'm Brian Levy. I'm the Chief Relationship Officer for Cambridge Caregivers and Manchester Care Homes. I'm also the host of the Manchester Living podcast. The purpose of the podcast is to help people navigate the complex maze of elder care. There is a lexicon of elder care terms on the website at manchesterlivingpodcast.com. Today's episode is called Normalizing Real Talk About Aging and How to Plan for It. But first, we'll roll into new and noteworthy.
So I am spending a lot of time with my parents because I'm trying to stay in the will. You know what? Let's see what we might have in common here. By round of applause. How many parents are in the audience this evening? Round of applause. Okay. That's great, because I'm a new mom. Yes. I have a 77 and an 84-year-old. What is happening? Like, one day I had parents, the next day I'm like, what are Ruby Dee and Ossie Davis doing in my house?
How the tables turn. Let's be patient with our elders. They taught us how to use a spoon. On today's episode, we're talking about normalizing real talk about aging and how to plan for it. My guest today, Susanna Barton, host of the GRANDPLANS podcast and author of multiple workbooks and GRANDPLANS 2.0. In full disclosure, Suzanne is also a friend of mine from grade school. So we've known each other a very long time, recently reconnected thanks to social media, realizing that we were pretty much in the same industry. Yes. So welcome today. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Let's talk about your path. Who are you? Where did you come from? And how did you get here?
Well, Brian, as you know, I came from your homeland of San Antonio, Texas. And as we were talking about earlier, I went to college in Virginia and met my husband there. And eventually we moved to his hometown of Jacksonville, Florida. And through all this time, I've been a writer and reporter. I was a staff writer at the Austin Business Journal for a little bit, and then at the Jacksonville Business Journal. And then for a long stint, I was in communications at an independent school in Jacksonville, Florida. So that's kind of how I got where I am now.
And there you were, just a regular mom and a regular wife doing your thing, and then poof, the phone rings.
Yes, the phone rang. And it was very much out of the blue. And let me backtrack a little bit by saying I had experienced death and dealing with older adults and challenges and opportunities for a long time. My parents took care of our grandparents. They lived right down the street, and so it has always been a thing. I lost my mom when I was 20, and that was very out of the blue. And then for a long time, there was no death happening, no crises or anything, until one day, as you said, I got a call out of the blue from the parents of a deceased friend. And they lived about 4 hours away from me in South Florida. And it was from their housekeeper. And this housekeeper had somehow found my name, and she was very worried about this couple. One was in end-stage Parkinson's. The other had some dementia challenges, and the bills weren't getting paid. There were lots of caregiving needs that weren't being addressed properly. There were safety concerns. There were fraud. There was, you name it, it was happening to this couple in their home. And so they called me, or the housekeeper called me to come down and check it all out. And when I got there, I said, I don't know how I can help you. This is a lot. I can barely figure out a checkbook. I don't do math or finances, none of that. So, and that was what a lot of it was about. Eventually I found the name of the attorney who had put together all of their documents. And I called him up and I said, this couple's in trouble. They need help. And he said, well, Susanna Person, who is that to you? I was like, that's me. And he said, well, actually, they named you as their power of attorney and successor trustee and all the good things way back when. They had just never told me about that. So at that point, I could do something about it. And that's when I jumped into what turned out to be about 3 years of pretty hardcore, pretty alarming care management. I was not doing the day-to-day stuff, but I was around it, in it, freaking out about it, getting PTSD from it. So,
and as an obligation for our friend,
yes,
you felt like, okay, I'm going to take this on. This is my assignment, and I'm going to do it.
Yes, and it was. I thought I could help them, and at first it was. There were things. I hired a geriatric care management firm who hired the daily caregiving firm to work with them. And then there was a daily money manager. So I started to find all the pieces to put together around them. And so the scaffolding was being built, but it just didn't stop. And at first I thought, oh, this is temporary. Surely end stage Parkinson's has a shorter window. But that's the big lesson I learned, is that you can never, ever estimate how long a situation is going to last.
Right.
For better or worse.
Right.
You never know.
Right.
So this one lasted a good bit longer than I thought. And in the meantime, my own father got sick and passed away. So it was juggling a lot of the same issues, but from someone who had done a little better planning.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Bless your heart.
Well,
Seriously, you're
my heart.
Magical work here. All right. What were the biggest takeaways, lessons from your caregiving management misadventure? Your father's short illness and passing, and then other personal experiences.
Yeah. No, I think one of the big ones is that you can never plan for it perfectly, and there are going to be surprises, and you're never going to predict how long something's going to last. It's just not going to happen. So that was a big one. The second thing I took away is that it's expensive, caregiving and making plans for what I call the second half, because I really do think all of this conversation starts not, when you're, about to croak, but a lot further back than that.
Right.
And so I think, when we're looking ahead at what's going to happen in our second half, there's a lot of expense to it, and we need to plan for it. And then I guess, I don't know, the third is that it just behooves all of us to early and often to check our legal documents and make sure we're squared away for the long haul.
Yeah. And you recognize through working with this couple,
yes,
none of this was in place.
Right. They had done some pretty good planning on the front end, which was to pick me as their person, but they just didn't tell me that I was their person. So that was where the trouble started. My dad, on the other hand, had well laid out his wishes. He was a lawyer. My brother's a lawyer. There are a lot of lawyers in the family, so everyone's buttoned up that way. But he didn't do, I think one of his shortcomings, and what I learned from that, is that he didn't want to talk about it very much. So when it did come to the end of things, there was a lot of gray area on what his wishes may have been. So I see now the importance of the ongoing communications piece of it.
Sure.
So that was kind of the takeaway from all of that. But again, the conversation just needs to start early and often.
Yeah.
And that's where I see, every time I raise my hand and say what I do or what I've written about, people want to talk about it. People want to share their experiences, because there's, I don't know, it's just kind of a taboo topic sometimes.
Yeah, that's an important, let's go there.
Yeah.
People don't want to talk about it.
Right.
Especially the finance component. Our folks' generation and their folks' generation, they didn't talk finances.
That's right.
And so it was just handled. It was taken care of until the surprise at the end.
Right.
How do you open the door to that conversation? There's a program that your workbooks remind me of called the Conversation Project.
Yes. Oh, that's so good.
And I love the Conversation Project. Your workbooks remind me of that, but in a different, more non-clinical way. It's just it's like the basics, but in depth.
Yes.
Opening conversations about things that they typically don't want to talk about. Like, okay, well, when you do want to move, if you do, or if you want to stay at home, who's going to pay for that?
Right.
What do your accounts look like, and what are my responsibilities?
Yes.
You want to talk a little bit about opening that conversation?
I do. And there's some other, you mentioned that website. Prepareforyourcare.org also is another good one. 5 Wishes, which is, I don't know, it's more talking about your advanced directives, but certainly can get conversation going. And also Let's Talk About Death Over Dinner is a fantastic book and has lots of suggestions on how to open up the conversation.
But it sounds morbid, but it's not about morbidity. It's about planning.
Yes. And love for your family and compassion for the people who will be supporting you one day. So through my work in this, I came up with 2 card games, and I should have brought it with me today, but we'll play it next time. But it's called the What If game. And it's a series of questions that help people think through, okay, this is my vision for my caregiving, for example. I want to live in a big house, a big 1-story house on the ocean. And if something happens, I want 24/7 care. Well, that's a great plan for some people, but it may not be the great plan for you.
Right.
So the card game, and there's another one called Ask Yourself Honestly, which is a similar collection of questions to get people to think through scenarios of, okay, so what happens if I'm here in my home and I trip on that rug and break my hip, which is a lot of people's story.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, and
that's most likely going to happen.
Yes,
so let's
most
plan
likely
for
going to
it.
happen.
Yeah.
In fact, 70%, I'm sure you know the standard, 70% of adults will need long-term care in their life. So anyway, thinking through, okay, if I fall, what am I going to do? Who's going to help me get to the store? How am I going to get there? How much is it going to cost? And what do I have to sponsor that kind of lifestyle?
Right.
And there's no bad answer, but they're honest answers. And that's what we need to get to in my mind. And that comes from just making it a normal conversation, just like you would talking about going to get your hair done or, I don't know, picking out a dress or
making your needs, making your wants known.
Yes.
It's okay. If I'm incapacitated and I'm at home, do I want to be in the bedroom or the living room? My glasses on or off? My teeth in or out? Do I want my grandkids present? Do I not want them present?
Right.
All the way down to my attorney suggested not only in my will do I say I want to be cremated, but how, when, where, and what? What do they do with the ashes? Okay, well, you say you want to put them in the ocean. Where in the ocean? All the way down to Marker 91 in Port Aransas. Now everyone knows where my ashes are going.
Boy.
But all the way down to the minute details, so nobody's left to question or to guess.
Right. And there is the legal side of it, which is aligning your advance plans.
Right.
And some of that you need an attorney for, some you don't. But to make a will, they're those kinds of documents that are legal. But there's also a component of it, which is just the conversation. And some people have, what are they called? They're wills. They're not legal wills, but it's, I'm going to forget what it's called. But it's essentially speaking in layman's terms about how you want.
In minutia details.
Yeah. Yes. Not legalese, but minutia detail.
Yeah. Let's talk about mindful aging. Can you explain what that means and how it's different from traditional retirement or estate planning?
Yes. Okay. So mindful aging strategies, which is the buzzword or phrase that we kind of came up with, is planning for aging. In gerontology, it's called structured aging planning, which is getting your legal, medical, and financial plans together in a conscious way. So we thought, mindful aging strategies describes that very well.
Yeah.
But that's really, when you're talking about retirement, that conversation is, am I going to have enough money to stop working and live a happy life? Mindful aging strategies is looking at all the bits and pieces for our second half to include trips and your legacy, what you want to leave to your children, to include where you want to live, how much stuff you need. It's thinking about it holistically in very normal conversation. how things are going to be planning out. And again, you cannot plan the entire thing. There's going to be things that come up. There will never be a perfect plan. But the more you think about the realities that are ahead, then the better off everyone in your family and in your community are.
Sure. How has pursuing gerontology masters impacted your work and career? You talk about some of the hunches about successful aging you picked up via personal experiences aligned with the science of gerontology. Those are two different dynamics.
Yes. Well, and it's so funny. I'll answer this a few different ways. So I'm pursuing my master's in gerontology from the University of North Carolina, Greensboro. And this idea came to me during a happy hour with some girlfriends.
Best ideas are started at happy hours,
yes.
for sure.
So she said, oh, there's a program at the University of South Florida that would really be good for you. You should look into it. And I hadn't even heard of gerontology. I didn't know it was a thing.
Yeah.
And so I ended up finding this program in North Carolina. But it was very redeeming for me as an author and someone who had found herself in this space, because when you're going through a caregiving, what I call a caregiving misadventure, but it really can be caregiving or, negotiating or managing the life of older adults, there's some things that you just have a feeling about, like, gosh, Mom, I really have a feeling you would be happier if you were living in a community where you could walk to the store or,
subtle suggestions.
But something in that example, like feeling like community would be good. Community is everything. I mean, there are multiple studies and research around how to improve loneliness, which of course, isolation, which is one of the biggest threats to
One killer.
to joy in your second half. So that's an example of putting the science behind something you feel might be right. And there are a lot of areas like that where you think, oh, I just think that might be a good idea. But and at the end of the day, it was all of it. And one of my favorite parts was this thinking about lessening self. We all need to get a handle on our stuff and lessen what we have. But I think we also need to lessen our sense of self, which, again, sounds kind of woo-woo. But there's science behind that, too. As we age, and again, as we get into our second half, Arthur Brooks, his writing, he talks about crystallized intelligence. And that's where you're taking what you've learned in your first half of life and applying it to helping others, to being a mentor, to coaching, moving into that element, which in turn lessens your sense of self and focuses outward. Richard Rohr is another big advocate of that. And those guys aren't necessarily scientific based, but there are other research studies showing how important that is.
It's dual. It's decluttering your own personal stuff and decluttering your physical stuff.
Yes, I think so. I think the physical stuff is a big one. That is a universal issue for anyone and everyone going through.
We all spend a lifetime collecting tchotchkes from trips and T-shirts and things.
Yes.
And then it's time to declutter.
Yes,
and
it's time to declutter.
It doesn't seem like clutter when you're doing it.
Right.
But do you really need that refrigerator magnet?
I mean, it is exactly. And we are all in this boat.
Sure.
So no one's better at it than others. But yes, I think there's a physical side of it, which can be exhausting and horrible. And I'll tell you about that in a second. And then the other side is taking a look at yourself. You're not going to be the star of the show as you get older. This is about, I think, a lesson in life is looking outward, looking to community, looking to see where you can share the wonderful gifts that you've developed over your lifetime in mentoring roles and coaching roles. So let me get back real quick to the stuff part of it. That is a clincher. So the situation that I was in, that I found myself in a few years back, part of that experience was cleaning out an entire house that belonged to my friend. And honestly, of all the things, and I probably sound like a total loser, wussy person, but throwing out everything that this friend had accumulated, giving it away.
Yeah.
There was time. I didn't have time to spend half a year going through everything, finding the right place for stuff. It had to be quick.
It was sentimental. What meant something to somebody
Yes,
else?
I
Why
tried-
they got
yes.
that? You just
And at the end of the day, there's such a limited family in that case that it just didn't really
Right.
go anywhere.
Right.
And it felt horrible. It took, of all the things I did, that really hurt the most. And I think a lot of people feel that way. I've heard people saying how hard it is to go into a loved one's home and throw out their shampoo bottles
Right.
or, their personal items but what do you do? And so, not that you want to throw out all your shampoo bottles before you pass away, but I do think lessening that impact is a real gift for others.
the birthday cards, the childhood posters,
Yes.
the baby teeth, the things that our folks save.
Right.
What do we do with all that? Yeah, so it is hard to purge.
Yeah. Yeah.
With the 65 plus population rapidly growing, what concrete steps can individuals and families take now to prepare for the second half of life with confidence? What do you do to get yourself ready for that?
Yeah. Okay. Number one, it's to find a good elder law attorney or estate planning attorney. Get a rec from a friend, get someone who's good, and get all of your important documents squared away. If you do nothing else, get a last will and testament. And if you do nothing besides that, get a power of attorney, a durable power of attorney. And then a tear down, maybe, depending on your situation, maybe getting trust set up, irrevocable or revocable trust, depending on your situation. So legal planning is essential. And I kind of lump advanced planning, like living wills, into a slightly different category because, again, your attorney can help you with those or point you in the right direction, but you do not need one. You can go to AARP, go to the Advanced Directives by State.
There's the form.
Download it. There's the form. It's good to go for your state, and that's easy. And then some of the things like a DNR or a do not intubate or a PULST, those are things that you would get from your doctor. So that kind of falls into the category of you don't really need an attorney, but I'd say the first step is to definitely get an attorney and get them to direct you. And then the second piece of that is, of course, the financial planning, because that is where that's the foundation of everything after that.
It's where it all collides.
Yes. Yep.
Excuse me. Define grand planning and why it's so important to families to understand. Did you coin that term?
I did.
I love that.
I coined it. And it was just an idea that came into my mind. I'm a writer, so I love words. And that seemed to be a fun play on words with grand. And
Well done.
Yes, thank you.
All right.
So yeah, that is what mindful aging strategies is, and just the whole notion of structured aging planning.
Structured aging planning.
Yeah, that's the technical term.
Getting organized.
Yes.
Grand planning should not be about inheritance, but rather planning and care. How do you get both sides to understand this?
Yeah, that's hard. And again, I think it just starts with the conversation. When everyone is on the same page, when you're not saying one thing to one person and another thing to somebody else,
Right.
Just to make sure there's clarity around that and to make sure everyone's expectations are aligned. I personally think that, and I know this is very personal, but a financial discussion should be very transparent, that our older adults in our lives should be willing to communicate those things so that it's very clear.
Share in advance.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
Yeah.
Again, that generation ahead of us, the baby boomer generation, who the last of the baby boomers is turning 65 in 5 years. So we're on the edge here of a major demographic explosion. And so these conversations are essential.
We should all plan ahead.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I oftentimes hear adult children talking about, well, mom doesn't really need that care, or she can't afford it. And either they're insinuating, or I just know it's about the inheritance. And it's, oh, we don't want to spend that money on this. We can go to a less expensive assisted living because I need that money for me and my kids later. And
That's horrible.
It is horrible. And oftentimes I have to kind of explain to adult children, the ship sailed. Your mom's not changing your will because you're putting in her in an assisted living home. You're not going to get any more or any less because you're helping her make a decision she doesn't want to make.
Right. And again, I think it's those conversations start early. If that really is the end game for the parents in your situation or the kids, that they want the inheritance, then maybe the conversation is, how do we invest in a long-term care plan, insurance plan that makes that possible.
Yeah.
So
in your book, you offer this advice: advance your directives, write your prescription for health, consider your medical thresholds. Please elaborate.
Oh, yes. Well, that's getting back to advanced planning with your with a living will, and just making sure everyone knows what you want and communicating that the right way. It's a thoughtful, needs a thoughtful approach, because the people you choose to be your healthcare surrogate or to step in for you when you can't, you need to make sure ahead of time that they have the availability to do that, that they're interested, that they know they're the person.
They're not getting the surprise call.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So much great content from your book that I'm asking you questions about. What is structured aging preparation or practice of mindful aging strategies or grand planning?
Yeah, mindful aging strategies and grand planning and structured aging planning, it's all the same thing, which is thinking early about your second half, how you'll pay for it, how you'll legally get organized for it, and how to make your final wishes and advanced directives known to others. And then it includes a whole other slew of inputs, from what you want your legacy to be, how you're living that out, where you want to live, how your stuff matters to you. Pets, we haven't even talked about that. That's part of the plan too. You know, what's the thinking around the animal, the pet in your life?
Sure.
So it's taking all of those things and putting them on top of the core, which is planning financially, legally, and medically for the second half of life.
So in essence, get your affairs in order before the doctor tells you it's time to get your affairs in order.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And the earlier, the better, and the more ongoing the conversation, the better.
That's great, because it is an evolution.
It is.
The conversation should always be alive. Absolutely.
Yes, and to mention legally, of course, things change in our lives, and that's something to keep having the conversation about it, but to keep going back and tweaking it according to your life situation.
Sure. Where does one start, and what is the most important step? How do you start this conversation?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Besides getting the phone call, hey, you're a power of attorney. You go into your folks' house and say, hey, y'all are starting to decline. That's not a good conversation start.
Not good. No. I think one of the best ways you can do it, if depending on who the audience is to talk about what you're doing yourself. In an example, I really wanted to talk to my dad about what his plans were for navigating. He was approaching 80, and I just wanted to make sure he was, okay and doing the right things. So to bring up that conversation, I told him a lot about what was happening in this other situation that I was engaged with and how hard it was. And these were the things that we were doing to mitigate some of those challenges. So it was like, this is what I'm doing. Yes. Okay. Yeah. What are you doing? So kind of starting it with yourself and what you're doing is a great way to kind of role model the situation a little bit.
And how did that impact your relationship? How did that impact your ongoing communications? Mm-hmm. What was that like?
With my dad, it depends on the person. My dad was not into wanting to talk about it. And he's like a lot of older adults, just don't want to talk about it. It's hard. We're talking about your mortality. That's the antithesis of why we're here on earth. No one wants to talk about dying.
Paying taxes.
Yeah, or paying taxes, right. And sometimes politics.
That too, yeah.
So, I think it just depends on the person, but a lot of people don't want to talk about it. Communication is very, very hard. In the situation, I call it the caregiving misadventure, I had communication was terrible. They were angry. They acted out. Was called things I've never been called before in my life, and it hurt my feelings to the core. And so I was very reluctant to have important conversations with them. So in that case, I went through geriatric care managers, the caregivers to push things forward and to have better conversations. And sometimes you just can't. But I think the earlier it starts, the more normal it is. And, it doesn't have to be every dinner conversation, but it can be.
The conversation needs to always be open.
Yes, absolutely.
What is living with a legacy mindset?
Oh, I love that, Brian. Living with a legacy mindset is thinking about maybe your obituary and what it says about you. And you think, what am I doing now to live out what I want people to remember about me?
Yeah.
Living with a legacy mindset doesn't necessarily have to mean, how am I going to, spread generational wealth? It can be, if that's important to you. But it's something as simple as how you want to be remembered. And it can be something as simple as I want to be recalled as a generous person.
Yeah.
So maybe start doing generous things. It's just taking stock of that now and living it out.
I think it's important to point out that can start at any time.
Yes.
There are plenty of scenarios where people have done not so great things through life, but then they turn a new leaf and they want to give back or be part of the community in a different way.
Yes.
That's mindful.
And I think of I love reading obituaries. Wow. I mean, yeah. And it's not just because of this work. I think it's one of the last pieces of good journalism and storytelling. It can be.
Yeah.
And it always drives me crazy when someone's obituary is just dates and club memberships.
Simple.
Although I think that's important. I think we all need to do a better job knowing those dates and club memberships and things far ahead of time. But I think that should be kind of the skeleton of what the good story is. And I love a good story. There are just so many of them that pop up.
Journalist in you. Yeah. I think that is a great takeaway. Live your legacy now.
Yes.
Yeah. What haven't I asked you that I should?
Okay. So one of the other big topics, and this is something that everyone finds himself in the middle of at some point, is the driving retirement conversation. That's another one that can just be addressed far ahead of time before it becomes a problem, before your loved one or you kill someone on the road. So I think conversations about driving and retirement and the many opportunities there are to get ourselves where we need to go independently. I came here in an Uber.
Right.
That's very normal.
Yeah.
Lyft, taxis, whatever it is. I think driverless cars is going to be a norm for us.
For sure.
So I think that's a big one. Once you're paring down your stuff, you're getting legally prepared, you're getting financially underway.
Have an agreement with you. This is my hot topic. I'm big on taking the keys away.
Yes.
Because you know what? They're sharing the road with my kids and your kids.
Yep.
So
exactly.
Fantastic. All right. On to the nugget portion of this broadcast. Ironically, I can't see well enough to shop online, so I'll just drive to the store.
Oh my gosh.
How apropos, right?
Yes. That's
all right, Susanna, we're going to roll into the lightning round. There's an opportunity for people to get to know you personally. I've only known you since the second grade, so I wonder if I know some answers. All right, we're going to just rapid fire. Where were you born and raised?
San Antonio, Texas.
College and degree?
Hollins College, and I backed into a history degree.
All right. First concert?
Adam Ant with Bow Wow Wow at the Majestic Theater.
In San Antonio.
In San Antonio, Texas.
Amazing. Mm-hmm. Worst modern invention?
Oh, plastic packaging of any kind.
Still in touch with childhood friends aside from me?
Yes. Yes, we talked about some of them. Spent some good times with some of our classmates over the years.
Mountains or beach?
Both. I love mountains. We go to Lake Toxaway, North Carolina a good bit, and Crescent Beach in Florida. So
nice. Call or text?
Text.
Ever lived abroad?
Yes.
Can you change a tire?
No.
iPhone or Android?
Oh, gosh. iPhone.
Are you sentimental?
Yes, very.
Karaoke, yes or no?
No, I get roped into it sometimes, but I'm not good.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
It is not. It is a glizzy, Brian.
A glizzy?
Yeah.
Do you believe in aliens?
I do. Sure. Why not?
God, I miss you. Thank you for being here today.
Thank
Very
you.
kind of you. I will let the audience know Susanna flew in from Florida this morning to be on this show, so I'm very grateful. Thank you for sharing your expertise and knowledge. If you want to watch this episode again or any other episode, you can dial us up on ManchesterLivingPodcast.com, Facebook, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. If there's ever anything I can do for you, don't hesitate to reach out directly. We are going to put up Susanna's URL, mygrandplans.com, if you want to buy any of her workbooks or book itself. It's a great read. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Brian. It was a pleasure.
You bet.